A huge welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 2 of Second Operator, a live stream podcast dedicated to portable desktop synthesizers and DAWless music creation. I'm your host, Shines. We've got a great show for you today. We're going to start with the latest in portable synthesizer news, and then we're going to move things right along to our live interview with the incredibly talented Ainsworth the Musician. I want to give a huge shout out to our wonderful community here on YouTube Live as well as on Instagram. Thank you so much for following me on various platforms. It means the world to me to have your support. Your feedback has been incredibly helpful in getting the pace of the show flowing, and it helps me to deliver the content that you want to either watch or listen to. Shout out to the entire community for your awesome support. All right, let's get on with today's news. Actually, more like this week's news. We're going to kick things off with a little bit of some stories from NAMM 2023 happening this week. NAMM is a trade show dedicated to the latest in music technology, and they are, I thought they were going to be going on Friday, but it seems like they've actually started some things this week, and they've been announcing a lot of really cool stuff as this week has progressed. So the first item that I wanted to bring up is something really, really awesome, something that I'm thinking about getting into myself. It has a lot to do with DAWless music. It is, of course, the Polyend Tracker. Polyend, the Polyend Tracker Mini was just announced, actually just yesterday as part of the NAMM 2023 showcase. Polyend is a company best known for its tracker hardware. They unveiled the Polyend Tracker Mini. It's a portable, standalone version of the Polyend Tracker. It looks kind of like a handheld gaming device. Looks a little bit more like a portable kind of handheld thing than its bigger brother, but it has all the same sequencing and sampling capabilities that its bigger brother has. It's got a beautiful display screen with a bunch of hardware buttons around it, and it's got a whole bunch of other features that really I can't wait to read about more as news starts coming out. Seems like it's available for pre-order currently right now at $699, which is incidentally the same price as the regular Polyend Tracker. So that's an interesting little tidbit there. Looking at its design a little bit closely, it does seem to be inspired maybe directly by the M8 or the Mate tracker from Dirty Wave. Here's a picture of it here. It's got the same sort of screen. The UI looks very similar. It's got a bunch of hardware buttons on it as well. These little Game Boy type trackers, I think, are getting, especially standalone trackers like this, they're probably going to get a lot more popular in the coming years just due to their portability, standalone versatility, and just being able to have something like this on the go, especially as we start moving away from computer hardware. This is the bigger brother, the Polyend Tracker. As you can see, it's a lot bigger. It's not battery powered like the mini version is. So definitely a huge change coming around that is very exciting to follow. Moving on to the next bit of news here, we actually have a new portable synthesizer joining our DAWless family. We're talking about something called the Instacord, and it was created by a man called Yuichi Nagata from Japan, and it's currently live up on crowdfunding platforms. It looks like a small guitar. It sort of resembles an Omnichord if it were a Flying V style instrument, but unlike the Omnichord, it has pads instead of the metal plate that you strum. So these are buttons. You can press them, you can strum them, you can hold them down. It just seems like the expressiveness of this instrument is going to be what sells it and what's going to, really make this instrument stand out. Looks like it also has a screen on it that's going to display some of the chords that you're playing, some information about maybe the sounds that are coming out of it, and which is pretty cool. And it seems like the whole instrument is battery powered, which is very nice to have. And it has all the MIDI connections and the ports that we love to see in all of our portable instruments. It's also got a built-in speaker, so you can kind of take it on the go, have little jams outside on a nice day like we're having lately here in April. So definitely keep an eye on this instrument as they break into the international crowdfunding market. We're excited to see where this is going to take us. So with the news out of the way, let's go ahead and get into our interview. Coming at us live from Toronto, please give a very warm welcome to Ainsworth the Musician. Ainsworth is a composer, producer, and musician who makes everything from synth pop to lo-fi and has an absolutely stunning Instagram profile if you have yet to see it. Let's go ahead and bring Ainsworth to the show. Hey Ainsworth, how are you doing? You are now live.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's good to have you with us here today. And you're coming at us from Toronto, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How are things up there right now?
Things are doing great up here. Weather has been really, really nice the past couple days. It's felt like an early summer, so it's been a
Okay,
treat.
cool. Hopefully not too hot.
No, no, just right.
Nice. Cool, man. Well, it's really good to have you here. I mean, you're a very talented musician. I've been looking at your Instagram stuff for quite a while now, and you definitely post very consistently, which is really cool to see. But let's maybe start with getting into some of your background. Would you maybe give us a little bit of an introduction, how you got into music, so on and so forth?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Sorry, so say it again. The beginning, like start how I got into music.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
I
just
got into
mhm.
music. Yeah, okay. How I got into music was probably at the beginning of high school, I think was the first time I guess you could say I was doing anything serious other than messing around. Yeah, and that would be initially, I guess, playing guitar and
Nice.
singing were the first two things I tried
Okay.
my hand at.
Nice.
And then throughout most of my, early music career, vocals was kind of my main thing.
Mm.
Like I've always played guitar, but more as like a utility than really like,
Yep.
I would never describe myself as being a guitar player. It's
Cool. So
always
it's
just
like
been a
more of an
tool.
accompanying kind of tool for you. Interesting. You
Yeah,
started with guitar. So when did you get into keyboards and synthesizers and such?
that has been a very recent thing in my life, actually. I've always
Interesting.
wanted to,
Mhm.
but it's not something that I ever really invested the time in. I think a lot of people, noodle around on instruments when they play in bands, but
Mhm.
no one really ever takes the time outside of their given task. So I kind of just focused on singing for many years. And then aside from that, I basically learned electronic music production exclusively just on the computer. And that was something that I started really at the end of high school and I've been doing ever since. And so a couple years ago, I started to dabble more in playing keys and just as a MIDI keyboard initially. And obviously, everything's really spiraled out of control from there.
Wow. So it's really recent that you got into starting to write specifically for the instruments that you play now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything
Interesting.
else I
Wow.
did before, other than just singing and knowing like
Mhm.
the basic ability to record a demo,
Cool.
everything else I'd done was just like drawing MIDI on in like FL Studio. Like I had no ability
Whoa.
to play keys at all before this Instagram. Like I've learned in front of everybody.
Oh my god, that's incredible. Because like you do actually shred on the keys now.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, you have become quite the performer. I've seen in your videos. So wow, that's really cool. Um, yeah, actually, really curious. Like how when you started with guitar, how did that transition from strings to buttons to keyboard? How did that feel?
Oh man, they don't translate over really that well.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that I would say to somebody who's trying to pick up an instrument from the beginning, like start with keys, don't start with guitar. Like it doesn't they don't translate over at all. Like I can play accompaniment on guitar
Mhm.
and pretty good rhythm guitar and I'm a good guitar player in the studio, but I would never play like in a live setting. It requires a lot more rehearsal than I'm willing to put in,
I
basically.
feel you on that. I feel you on that. No, that's great. When you started with guitar, like or started writing music, what would you say was like a genre or what style would you say you were playing or writing?
I think when I was younger, it was all very much like rock from the time period I grew up in, like the mid to late '90s and into the early 2000s is when I sort of came of age. So I was really into like Incubus, and I remember being very influenced by Block Party and a few other bands from that era. The Strokes, obviously.
Nice, nice.
So that really drove my early interests in indie music and rock.
Hmm.
But at the same time, since I was a child, I always really loved dance music and contemporary pop and stuff. So my electronic music production always sort of was going in that direction simultaneously. And when the around 2008 2009 when
Hmm.
electro was humongous, I really was able to capitalize on that and did quite a bit of live DJing and had like a pretty solid following with electronic music at that point in time. I produced under the name Tape Deck Bros back then. And this was like before, any of the platforms that exist now, basically. We're talking like back at MySpace and, Hype Machine, and when music blogs were how everyone got their music back then. There was no streaming platforms. So it was really different.
I mean, yeah, I remember MySpace having the little like track selector that you can use to kind of play some of your songs. And did you I used to like post stuff on MySpace and then just go over to Facebook and be like, hey, here's a new song. Those come up in my Facebook memories every now and then. And I'm like, oh my God, like just.
And Facebook was huge for promoting shows and everyone connecting. And I mean, I'm not even on Facebook anymore personally, but times change,
interesting.
I guess.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll come back to that when we talk a little bit about community and getting together with people and stuff, because that is super interesting. That's pretty unique. Okay. Really, really cool stuff. I was going to say, the one thing that I have noticed about the music that you're posting on Instagram is, you are very melody centric. And I think because you're a singer, that actually makes so much sense now, that your melodies are basically your, the lead, lines for some songs. And, so I'm just wondering, so when you put a track together, do you usually start with the melody, or do you usually, how does a track get built for you?
I've tried to explain this to people for years, and when I was collaborating with other people, it was trickier than it is when I'm just, being the main contributor, or usually the only contributor with my Instagram posts. But I write in my head, and I know that that's kind of hard to explain to some people. You either get it or you don't. But like, I'll hear sometimes everything you're hearing in that jam in my head, and I'll have to like dash into my studio and try to get that idea down as fast as I can. So usually the jams that I'm uploading are like a click track and the song playing in my head, and I just lay it down, and then that's it. And then every part I need to add over top of it, I just do after that. Wow. Sometimes it's all happening at once. It really just depends on what instrument I'm working with.
Ooh, interesting. So I also noticed you have an OP1 field. Does that sort of help speed things up? Is that just sort of like, do you use it almost in that way of like, oh, I need to quickly get an idea down, where's my OP1? Do you use it sort of like that?
I mean, a lot of the synths that I work with are like that. I got the OP1 because, I feel like I've graduated to the point where I wanted something that I could do a little bit more with. Nice. And I've always wanted one. I'm really happy with how it sounds. And I love the idea of stuff that like gets me off of the computer. As much as I do use the computer to make the majority of my work, the creation phase, I think it's really benefit to get off of your computer. I used to spend forever just cycling through synth presets and making ideas that never went anywhere, and I would do that almost every day. And at some point I was just like, why aren't I just at least showing people this, and so I was like, I'm just going to find a way to share this online. And then transitioning to using hardware was just a natural progress. I think, like, I don't think I intended to do this. It just sort of happened. You
also mentioned it was somewhat of an addiction that you just kind of fell into, and you got one keyboard and then you just kind of started getting other ones. And that makes a whole lot of sense. Oh, that's a really cool, that's an awesome way that you kind of segued into sort of the DAWless worlds. Like, you still do make your, studio albums in a DAW. But what we're seeing on your Instagram are sort of like your, maybe your scratch tracks or the ideas before they get fully made into a concept. So it's kind of cool. Like, I like seeing your little sketchbook of musical ideas.
Yeah, thanks. It's the best way for me to also sort of get another level of filtration for what the good ideas are and the less good ideas. Not that I really let anyone else's opinion influence me too much when it comes to what I choose to work on and not, because it's hard to know what's good and what isn't. Everything's objective, right? So
right. Especially
you
gotta
kind of trust. You have to trust your own taste. If you're not making music that you like, then what are you doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So how do you gauge that? Do you gauge it with like Instagram engagement, or do you just like listen to it a whole lot? Or
I think a bunch of different things are about will teach me lessons from stuff I share on Instagram. A lot of those is like conquering lack of confidence, or like things like imposter syndrome. Like there's a lot of times where I'll do something and I'll think, well, that was bad, but I'm committed to this, project and this, experiment, if you'll call it.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll upload something that I really didn't feel good about, and very frequently those will be the ones that will do the best, that will get the most views, that people will have the most to say about. So just never get in your own head. And maybe some people get in their own heads more than others, but I definitely can be hard on myself. But I'm a way less hard on myself than I used to be, now that I have more people to bounce ideas off of, and the feedback that I get through Instagram and the other social media platforms that I share my music on.
That is awesome, man. I mean, that's actually really good advice, I think, for people that are still sort of on the fence about coming into the Synthstagram or synthesizer Instagram community. Just post it. Like
absolutely.
If you think it sounds like, awful, just try it out. Just try posting something and you might be surprised with the results.
Yeah, for sure. There's lots of people that probably can't stand the stuff that I post, and that's totally fine, because there's just as many people that are interested, and that's good. Art is subjective, and not everything is for everybody. So don't ever let that discourage you from making whatever weird original stuff that you want to put out.
Yeah, and some people just don't like melody. I don't know why, but
sure. And I love it. And to be honest, like I spend a lot of my time listening to stuff that couldn't sound more different to what I'm making, right? I love listening to weird squelching modular jams and stuff like that. That stuff's really cool to me. It's just awesome. I'm not going to go out and immediately do that because I'm seeing someone else do it. I'm trying to do my own thing.
Right. Have you ever thought maybe to get into modular? Has that world kind of been calling?
I am. I am actually, and I have like a small skiff right here that I'm working on. And so
wow.
I'll be posting some stuff from that soon. I'm always working on something in the background that I haven't shared with everybody yet. Like I try to learn a little bit about whatever I'm working with before I start posting about it, because almost immediately I get DMs from people asking me questions, and I feel like if I'm posting about this stuff, I'd like to be able to intelligibly talk about it with people. I'm not I'm by no means like a gear expert, and I can't really talk about like detailed synth modeling stuff.
The specifics. And
I'll get there eventually. I can feel, I feel that happening to me very progressively, much like, my piano playing and stuff. But I like to talk to people about it, so I try to know as much as I can.
Oh, that is so awesome. Let's actually play one of your tracks here. I kind of want to play the one that you do on your OP1 Field. I believe it's just called OP1 Field on a Sunday, or Sunday Vibes, or something like that. Yeah. I love it. I think it's really great. Let's hear that, and then let's come back and talk a little bit more about how your Instagram account grew into what it is now. So let's go ahead and run that track. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the inspiration in this track? How did this one kind of come into being, if you want?
Well, if it's an OP1 jam, then I'm literally just turning it on and trying to figure out what's happening and just going with it, because it's a workflow that I'm not familiar with, and I don't like to get too into something too fast. I have like a lot of different stuff to play with, and I could easily just forget about everything else I'm doing and get lost in the OP1 field. So what I'm doing with it right now for these initial jams is trying to have a very innocent and basic approach to it. So I find a synth preset I like, or a couple different parameters I can tweak, and I just go for it. So this was like a very much like what I said to you before. I had an idea in my head. I heard that preset and I was like, 1, 2, 3, action. And I
Nice.
just went for it. And it
Yeah.
was probably, I'd have to look back, but in most cases, unless I'm doing something very difficult
Yeah.
rhythmically, I usually get it in 1 or 2 takes and then we just go from there.
Wow.
So this one, I probably recorded that initial like vocal
Mhm.
sounding line first, and then was probably, humming along whatever was the bass line kind of backing groove in my head. And I probably, like, usually that was done probably within 30 minutes to an hour, the whole thing. Like, I try not to spend
Wow.
any unnecessary time on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just make sure that it doesn't sound like garbage and that everything is somewhat audible. And then and just throw it up online and then go on with my day, and then on to something else. Like, I try not to think about it too much at all.
That is absolutely awesome. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
How do you use the just out of curiosity, how do you use the tape on OP1? Do you delete it all the time, or how do you
I haven't
chop it
really
up?
figured
Yeah.
out I haven't really figured out how to use it properly yet. Not in a way that has worked for me yet. I
Mhm.
think until I make a point of being like, okay, this is going to be a series where everything is specifically just coming all from the OP1 entirely, I'm kind of ignoring that function for now and playing it just like a synth with some nice presets. Like, I'm obviously spending a lot of time outside of jams messing around with all the parameters and learning how
Oh
the
yeah.
tape recording function works.
Oh, it's so much
But
fun.
one
Yeah.
thing that one
Mhm.
thing that I've watched some of your
Mhm.
jams with the OP1 and other
Oh,
people.
nice.
I'm very impressed with your ability to bounce through all of its different functionality. That's not something that I've really ever had a lot of practice doing. So it's something that I'm working on, and I'll probably get a lot better. I can tell you right now that,
Nice.
like, I can see myself in the future doing a live set with just the OP1 and the Dig Attack. Like, that's something I would like to do.
Oh my
So
God, those are, yeah.
I'll probably record some of those and share them online before I end up doing it in person. But that's something that I'm working towards right now.
That is super cool. I cannot wait to see that.
Mm-hmm.
OP1 and Dig Attack, that's really just match made in, like, sampling match made in heaven right there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I picture the Dig Attack basically being like my back band, and
Cool,
then
cool, cool,
the
cool.
OP1's kind of being the performance synth. But yeah, no,
That's
as
super
soon as I
cool.
had
Yeah.
those two things
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
together,
yeah.
I'm like, I can see a lot of potential in this setup.
Oh, that's cool. And it's really awesome to get an insight into how you actually craft the music itself, where you start, like, once again, you start with the melody, you kind of hum it, and then you sort of hum the backing parts as well. I think I'm not alone in thinking that I'm definitely going to try that later. Because, like, right now I'm like
Yeah,
dealing with sequencers and like arpeggios and just doing stuff that, I don't know. Sometimes it is better to just kind of feel the groove. And if you sing something, it can really, it's a lot. I think it sounds a lot more natural. And that actually makes a lot of sense with some of the jams that you've posted. It really does seem like very natural, organic music. So that is super duper cool.
I use a lot of
Yeah.
harmony as well. I mean, in the way I wrote vocals, I mean, I hear it now, especially because you're asking me to talk about it.
Mhm.
I do basically write my synth parts the same way I would write a vocal line. Like, you'll often
Nice.
hear, rather than using like multi voiced chords,
Hmm.
I'll play like single notes of different synth tones
Cool.
overlaying each other. And another thing I really do a lot, and I mean, I've been doing this for years, but it's much more so now that I produce with hardware all the
Hmm.
time, is I really don't like to quantize things. I really like long takes. I
Nice.
like things to not be perfect. So I used to spend all this time faking that. And I found out it's a lot easier to be at a time when you're just not that good at playing. So now I just do it that way.
Oh, that's great. I mean, but it really does make it sound more organic rather than, than
It
something that's
does.
over quantized and
Absolutely.
pinpoint precision or whatnot. Do you have the same sort of, so you have the same sort of attitude when it comes to your actual studio stuff as well? Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, any work that I'm doing for anybody that I've been hired to for, background music
Hmm.
or things that I'm just making for myself, it's like absolutely there's like I have an obsession with like imperfection in music. I think
Cool.
that because I had so many years with just basic understanding of producing electronic
Hmm.
music, I think the thing a lot of people are frustrated with is just sort of how plastic and unmusical it can sound. It just feels
Hmm.
very like a person never made this kind of, you know what
Right,
I mean?
right. I
And
think a lot of the early
when I
stuff in
would
the 90s is like that.
and when I would
Yeah.
share my music with other
Mhm.
musicians who I respected and appreciated, many would be dismissive of what I did because I
Mhm.
think they just didn't really understand the process. And it didn't help that everything was literally just being drawn on a computer screen. So
Wow.
over time, I learned about how important it is to, like, you know, make music a little less perfect, and to have things a little bit at a time. And I do, like, I say this to people in
Cool.
DMs all the time, like, how did you make the bass sound like that? You know, I'll be like, well, number one, probably you need to pull everything a little bit off the grid, because if everything just feels
Right.
very static and has no dynamic to it,
Mhm.
all of these things add dynamic and flow and feeling and humanity to the groove. So I spend a ton of time doing that. Even in these little jams, I think about that stuff a lot.
Wow, that is amazing. That's a really good insight into your writing process. So you actually, so people are asking you a lot of questions about writing. I mean, obviously, I am. I mean, it really shows in your music. Like, you really do know you have something that I think a lot of people want in their own music, and whether it be, you know, the organicness how a track sounds, or just melodies kind of interweaving and such. I think that's really special. Um, I mean, obviously, your Instagram, you have over 5,000 followers, I think, right now.
Yeah, like 5.5 or something, something
Wow.
close to that.
Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about how that audience grew into what it is today?
Yeah, pretty steadily
Okay.
since I started. I definitely had to work a lot at, you know, making connections in before the synth community, just with other friendly
Hmm.
independent musicians who wanted to support each other. And frankly, I found myself way more enthusiastic when I spent as much time interacting with other people as I did hoping people were coming to interact with me. If you think you can just show up on social media and just become instantly famous because you're talented, that might happen, but it probably won't. It's pretty hard to get noticed these days.
Hmm.
So unless you really want to be doing it and you really want to, you know, be involved in a community or know other creators to keep yourself inspired, like that's how you'll grow. So at first it was, you know, add somebody and they'll
Hmm.
add you back, and like their posts and they'll like yours, and then you get inspired by other people that you meet and you find on there. And like I told you before, I slowly started to buy gear. The first thing I bought was the Korg Volca sample.
Oh, cool.
I just wanted a drum machine that was as cheap as possible so I could play like guitar over top of it
Nice.
and put something onto Instagram, right? Like I didn't care what. I was uploading almost every day. I was just singing and goofing around. But I didn't delete any of these old videos. Anybody can go back and watch them. I'm not embarrassed, you know.
Nice.
I was really immediately into DAWless stuff and saw that a very enthusiastic community there, and started to meet all, you know, people like yourself, and just got more and more inspired and got more and more ideas. And every time I would level up in terms of my quality of posts, I would just see the increase in followers start to go more and more. And, you know, every once in a while there'll be a lull, but generally
Hmm.
speaking, the growth has been pretty steady since I've started.
Wow. I mean, that speaks a lot about not just the quality of your music, but also just you being a bro, man. Like, that's great. Like, you are going out there, you're reaching out to people, and you're actually trying to connect the community together. And I think that is almost more important than the music sometimes. That's amazing.
Absolutely. I never
Yeah.
ignore anybody, or I answer every comment. You know,
Nice. Nice.
I know how much I appreciate it when somebody who I'm inspired by takes the time to talk to me, or
Yeah.
follows me, or answers my questions. And I know it can be very exciting for people to get that response. I'm not trying to boost myself up here or anything, but I can tell how pumped it is, how pumped some people are when I answer them. And it's my pleasure. I will do it forever. There's no amount of followers I can gain where I'll be too busy to not interact with the people.
People that was very, very happy to hear back from you. So that's really, really cool.
Pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
As soon as I saw what you were doing, this is exactly what I'm into. I'm
cool.
happy to be part of this. Anyone doing this?
Hell yeah.
Call me.
Nice.
I'm in.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I was going to ask you, so aside from the Instagram community, is there maybe like a physical community around your area in Toronto that you maybe do meetups with, or have you kind of reached out or met anyone from there?
So not personally. I mean, I don't know of anything going on like that in Toronto for like synth or anything like that specifically. That doesn't mean that I'm not interested in making that happen. I'm sure that there are groups of people. I live in a very big city. It's not like a small community.
Right.
So there's probably an incredible, core Volca hangout group
Meetup
that
group.
I don't know about,
Yeah.
Like there's probably a lot of that going on, but for me personally and some of the people that I know in this community, I that is something that I'm going to start up. Like I said to you, I do plan on doing some live hardware shows.
Yeah.
And I think when that happens, that's going to be my opportunity to bring in a few people who I've had conversations with and get some like-minded individuals and to start doing stuff like that here. And I'm sure in doing that, I'll find other groups of people who have already been doing that and are doing a great job.
That's so cool. I'm excited for you to link up with them, and I'm also really excited for you to start, to play live shows with your hardware setup as you've described it. So that's going to be fun. If you ever do decide to go on tour, I'm in North Carolina, so please keep us in mind. We're the birthplace of Moog. Like it's a fun place to be.
Yeah. No, I noticed a lot of people that I follow and follow me back are from there. So
yeah.
You guys must have some great scene going on down there.
It's interesting. I think we're just getting the scene connected here. So there's a lot of different pockets of, different modular or whatnot here in North Carolina. But I think we're still trying to connect the dots a little bit. And once we do, we will be unstoppable. But until we do, there's a lot of room for growth. I mean, in Toronto, here, North Carolina as well, like it's just exciting when you can actually meet and, jam and stuff together and like geek out about synthesizers and stuff like that. So it's really, really exciting. Speaking of exciting, I kind of wanted to shift things over to your newest EP. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say, but do you want to maybe introduce it or say something about the track that you sent me earlier today?
Yeah, sure. So I'm working on a few different things this year. I'm trying to upload some more diverse examples of my abilities as a composer, while at the same time not getting too far away from the synth-based and experimental nature of the content I post on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So this is I haven't really had to explain this out loud yet, but I guess it's a study of hardware synthesizers, experimental music, and my love for like cinematic score. So I don't have a movie to score right now, but man, would I like to, or a video game or anything like that. I've worked on some projects like that, and I really want to do more. And some of the feedback I've got from industry professionals is you need to have examples out there. So this is a very obvious attempt at showcasing something very much in that direction. So this is a cinematic score piece. There are 3 of them, and they are about nature. They are about the cold spring in Canada, and there's a series of 3. This is the first of the 3. It's called The Marshlands, and I filmed it on my phone on a really cold and uncomfortable day.
Wow. I mean, we're talking Canada cold too. I mean, that must have been freezing.
It's cold. It didn't look as cold as it was. It was colder than it looked.
Wow. Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and play that track now. And then when we come back, we'll conclude with a couple different community shout outs, any upcoming things that you also want to shout out or plug. Let's go ahead and listen to The Marshlands by Ainsworth the Musician. All right, that was The Marshlands by Ainsworth the Musician. Thank you so much for sharing that track with us here. That was incredible, so cinematic. And I actually think your filmmaking was pretty good too.
Thanks. Well, I actually do that as a job too. Not
Oh,
on
wow.
a super professional level,
Yeah.
but on a social media level. So
Oh yeah, that's
I've
true.
learned to
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
And also people mention that often too. And again, just to save the future question, I also just learned to do that from Instagram and making these videos. Like it was just a
Wow.
byproduct of posting, and I got a job from it.
Did you really?
I
Oh my
do
gosh.
it as my, yeah, it has nothing to do with music, but yeah, I work in social media 100% because of this, music Instagram that I created. So dream big, kids.
Wow. Are you able to tell us how that started or anything more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I do work in social media for a couple different small businesses, and also through that, I've ended up doing, sound treatment for a couple other podcasts and, that type of stuff. So yeah, I do sound editing, I do some light videography and content creation. So all of the work I do now is, creative field adjacent, whether I'm doing music or stuff that's close to it.
Mhm.
That's all I do.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. And eventually, very soon, hopefully, you're going to be adding soundtrack to movies and video games to that list. I'm sure you keep this up,
Absolutely.
and that is going to be so sick.
Yeah, that's the goal. So
Wow.
so the Marshlands is a good example of some lo-fi distressed kind of orchestral music that I wrote by myself. Most of the parts are performed. The featured synth in that jam is the Roland SH-018, and the OP1 is in the background there, and the Yamaha Reface CP.
Is that the little piano tings
And
that I heard? The Yamaha?
yeah, though I'm using it for a few different things there,
Cool.
but a lot of like everything in these 3 tracks that are coming out from this Marshlands group they're very affected. Like they're really messed with. There's a lot of tape effect, and I use RC20 by Excellent Audio a lot. That's a really great effect. Anybody who wants to make music that sounds like mine, like you absolutely have to get that. If you don't know what it is, look it up.
Does it do
RC20?
Does that do the tape effect or?
It does.
Yeah.
RC20 is a retro color VST. It's an effect VST, and I use it absolutely on everything I ever make,
Cool.
at least in some capacity. It's great for stereo and mono, switching, and it does. It's incredible how much it can do. RC20 and DS10, which is a drum sculptor, both by Excellent Audio.
Wow.
Amazing secret weapons.
Oh man, well, that's getting me really pumped for this collection of ambient, soundtrack music that you're coming out with. Any idea as to when the EP might drop?
Yeah, so I decided today, after thinking about if I was gonna share this with you or not, that I'll probably just drop all 3 tracks one at a time, a week after another. And then when all 3 are out, then there'll be a little EP.
Beautiful.
So I'll drop the first one next week, and then the next one the week after, and the next one the week after that.
Dude, that is awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear any of that, like all of that stuff. That's going to be so cool, to listen to just the different moods, the different ambient kind of vibes that you are creating, especially with the tape saturation type effect on it. That's going to be really cool to listen to just with headphones. So
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Wow.
Listen to it on your best system.
Right. No, seriously.
Myself too, so I'd appreciate feedback from producers. If you guys like the way it sounds or you don't,
Nice.
and you wanna rip on me, that's fine too. Just DM me and tell me what you think.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ainsworth. We're about out of time now. We're going to wrap things up here. Is there anything else, any other shout outs or any other plugs you want to say before we close?
Follow me on YouTube, because not a lot of people are doing that. I want to get up to 1,000 subscribers this year. That's my goal for YouTube, so that would be incredible. If anyone who's listening isn't following me, go follow me there. TikTok, I don't care as much. If you're doing it, fine. I'm still posting there. Less important to me. But YouTube is big, and please go stream my tracks. A lot of people listen to my jams and then they never ever end up finding their way onto streaming platforms. And you ask me every day, folks. Yes, I make real full songs, and they are on streaming platforms. You can listen to them there. The links are in my bio, or you can go to ainstudiolab.com.
Awesome.
Okay.
Ainsworth, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on Second Operator. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Toronto. I can't wait to have you on again, maybe do a follow-up at some point after your cinematic musical career takes off. And I just can't wait to just see where all this stuff explodes off into. So really, thank you so much for being on here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll catch you around.
Take care.
All right. All right. Again, you can follow Ainsworth right here on YouTube as well as on Instagram at @Ainsworth the Musician. In his bio, you can find his link tree, and that has a bunch of links to his website as well as all of his music on Spotify. So if you are interested in hearing some of the more studio-based stuff that he has created, please give that a look. You've been listening to Second Operator. Thank you so much for joining us here on the live stream and for being part of this awesome DAWless community. If you want to get in touch with me with any news or community shoutouts, you can connect with me on Instagram at second.operator, as well as on Twitter at second_operator. I had to find a different handle there. You can also find us right here on YouTube at youtube.com/@secondoperator, and eventually you'll find us on every podcasting platform in the universe. If you want to support our show, we are actually on Patreon at patreon.com/secondoperator. There's currently 2 tiers available. Both tiers get a cool Second Operator sticker. So if you're interested in that, please go check it out. It would mean the world to me if you did. That means I also get a sticker as well, which is going to be pretty cool. I can't wait to see, where in my studio I'll put that. Anyways, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, a really, really big thanks again for Ainsworth for coming out and joining us here. Next week, I'll be interviewing North Games Studio, and I cannot wait to get into conversations about video game music, OP1 stuff. I can't wait till you guys can hear that conversation. Keep an eye on my Instagram page, subscribe to this channel here on YouTube, and we will let you know when that episode is going to stream. Thank you so much again for joining. We will catch you in the next stream. Bye, guys.